You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Men and women both have a 24-hour hormonal cycle, but for men, they basically just have that 24-hour cycle. So for women, we don't have that, obviously. It's on a 28-day cycle rather than a 24-hour cycle. And so we'll have days where we're killing it because maybe we're in our ovulatory phase, so that's right in the middle of your cycle. You feel more confident, things sort of flow easier, and then you sort of hit your luteal phase, which is 2 weeks heading into your period. You're going to feel a little like more tired, maybe a little more irritable. And so just our lives are really not set up for somebody with a 28 cycle. It's set up for somebody with a 24-hour hormonal cycle.
Welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Alan Seals.
And I'm Heather Vickery.
I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say Alan Seals is making fun of me on video and you guys can't see it. I'm not Alan Seals. I'm Heather Vickery.
I'm not Heather Vickery. No, I'm Alan Seals. Are you? I thought you were doing it for a fun, like, I'm going to get Alan off guard. I'm going to catch him.
It was an accident, but it was a funny accident.
There you go.
Yeah.
But you did kind of say it like I was going to.
Yeah. I did. I'm Alan Seals. No.
Oh,
there we go.
I'm Heather Vickery.
Go ahead.
And?
Oh, I did the whole intro. Like, it's your turn.
Oh, Heather Vickery, ... Heather and I started off as two perfect strangers who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people.
Easy for
See,
you to
I
say.
told you. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success in all types of forms. I can't wait to get into this one.
Oh, it's going to be good. I'm excited. Alan, who's our guest today?
Lauren Lee Crane. So Lauren Lee Crane is an endo warrior, someone thriving with stage 4 endometriosis.
Easy for you to say?
Stage 4 endometriosis.
There
When
you
life
go.
presented Lauren with this frustrating and painful disease, Lauren decided to embrace chance and turn her pain into something truly transformational. So she was inspired to create a plant-based, science-backed supplement company that could help people experience better quality of life at every single stage. So her company is called Semaine Health and it helps break the taboos around periods, women's health, and menopause with clinically backed supplements. Lauren even embraced massive amounts of opportunity and risk to land her supplements in nationwide stores like these little things like Target and Walgreens. So Lauren Lee Crane, oh my God, welcome to the podcast.
Heather and Alan, thank y'all so much. That was just a wonderful intro. I love just the intro between you two. I could just listen to y'all all day.
Thank you. Thank you. We are silly.
Sometimes.
We embrace our humanness on it. Okay, so full disclosure, Lauren is a friend of mine, and I just recently started taking the menopause supplements. And then I was like, dude, this is some shit. You got to come on the show. Like, we got to talk about this. But also, I just think you're amazing and impressive and turning this, I mean, endometriosis is such a bitch, and turning that into something that not only elevates your life, but the lives of so many people. What the hell, girl? How did you do that?
Oh, Heather, thank you. Also, I wasn't sure, endo warrior probably doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. Endometriosis might sound like a very sort of niche thing. It actually affects 1 out of every 10 women, and it's probably more because it goes underdiagnosed. Do you guys want to should I give the sort of endo definition?
That's what I was going to ask, because I literally just Googled this because I wanted to make sure that I don't sound like more of an idiot than I'm already going to sound like. So endometriosis is a condition in which cells similar to the lining of the uterus or endometrium grow outside of the uterus. And I have so many questions about this because I had somebody that I used to be in a relationship with who had it, and other people like in what people don't talk about publicly is how painful periods are in general, I think.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Heather.
Well, I mean, there was some science that came out last year, the year before. I know that Lauren knows this, but where doctors are actually now able to prove that period cramps feel like heart attacks.
What?
Like, that's what we fucking do every month.
Shit, women are the
Yeah.
best.
I know, right?
Have y'all seen the like TikToks or the reels where like a partner will have like a period simulator on her partner, and it's usually a man, and he sort of dies at the first hurdle. Like
She's like, it's level one, you fucking loser.
Level one. This is not. We don't even feel that.
I know Crystal wants to get you one of those, Alan.
Now I need to. I want to know. I mean, I guess I don't, but I do. But
You do, and you have to record the reaction live. We need to see it.
all right. So
Maybe that could be an outtake of this show. We'll get a simulator. I'll come to Brooklyn.
Yep.
It hurts, man.
So okay. So these are maybe dumb questions, but why does it hurt to have these tissues and these cells growing outside of the uterus? I mean, because we've got like random things happening all over our body at random times all the time. Anyway, why does this hurt? Do you know? Like,
Yes, and I think I know. And these aren't dumb questions. There's not a lot known about endometriosis. People don't know the cause. There's some ideas, but people don't know why people get it, why you have these random cells that cause a lot of pain. And they cause a lot of pain because essentially they act like the endometrial lining within your uterus as well. So, your uterus, not yours, Alan, but ones with uteruses, we shed our lining every month while you're still having your period. Basically, the endometrial like tissue that's doing that outside in your pelvic cavity is doing something similar. So it basically has nowhere to go, but it's still shedding. So that can cause a lot of scar tissue and can cause just a lot of issues around your organs. So generally, people do have it in their pelvic cavity, but they can have this endometrial like tissue in their lungs, even in their brain. That's less common. But so people can have lung collapses because of the issues that this endometrial like tissue causes. For me, it actually pulled my left ovary down and attached it to the back of my uterine wall in the back. So it's very common that it, like when doctors do surgery and they look into the pelvic cavity, they're seeing basically like almost like spider webs, things that are pulling organs around or just sort of like spider webbed on top of organs.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that I have endometriosis. My mom did or does. You don't ever really get rid of it, right? You can have surgery to remove it, but other than that, most Western doctors are like, "Yep, you're kind of fucked. There's nothing we can do about it."
Exactly. And that's what it goes underdiagnosed partially because technically it can only be diagnosed with laparoscopic surgery. So going in with a scope and looking in somebody's pelvic cavity. But also because most of the time when I would go to my OBGYN or my primary care, they would just be like, "Oh yeah, painful periods. Ooh, that sucks.
Bummer.
Take painkillers. Yeah, bummer." That's normal. That's what women go through. So it took me 15 years to get diagnosed. The average diagnosis is about 7 to 10 years for white women and usually twice that for women of color.
Wow.
So it takes a long time. And the longer you go without getting diagnosed, the more scar tissue, the more sort of, complications you can have from it, which is what happened to me. So I say stage 4. Some people don't totally agree with staging it because it doesn't necessarily correlate to the pain you feel. Someone can have stage 1, which means they have less of that scarring and webbing, but still have excruciating pain every single day. Someone can have stage 4 and not really know until maybe they're trying to get pregnant and they can't, and the doctor does exploratory surgery. So I say stage 4 because basically stage 3 and 4 is deep infiltrating endometriosis, which means basically some of that scar tissue and the endometrial tissue is going into your organs. So I had it on my colon, on my intestines. My twin sister had it around her appendix, so they took out her appendix. But like I said, I have a friend who has it on her lungs, and so she's had 3 lung collapses and has been back and forth to the hospital. So it gets really, really complicated. When I first heard about endometriosis, Heather, my mom also has it. So you are 10 times more likely to have it if somebody in your family has it. And my mom had it, but what I thought it was just, oh, it's sort of painful periods. And that's basically, no doctor explained it to me. I went to Dr. Google to kind of figure it out, because it was just like, oh, it's this women's issue. It's a reproductive issue. Like, nobody was willing to give a lot of information about it, which is a shame because, again, like I said, it affects about 10% of the female population. And that's more people than people who have type 2 diabetes. So it's like when you frame it that way, then all of a sudden it's like, why don't we talk about this? Why don't we know about it?
Yeah. And to be fair, it does not only affect women, it can affect trans men if you have a uterus.
Exactly.
Yes. And I think you would know more about this than me, but even if you have a hysterectomy and have your uterus removed, that endometriosis tissue can still be in and around your body.
Absolutely. That was sort of the mistake that used to happen. Doctors would just be like, okay, if you've had kids or you don't want to have kids, let's just take everything out, everything being ovaries and the uterus. And that doesn't work because for most people with endometriosis, those endometrial-like tissues are elsewhere in your pelvic cavity. Like I was saying, mine was around my intestines and colon, but it can be anywhere. I also had it very much around my left ovary too. So that ovary is like cut all apart and way tinier than like the right ovary. There is a condition that's often coupled with endometriosis called adenomyosis. And that is when that I know, more fun Latin words. And that,
sounds like
that
you're doing yodeling
face right now.
And it's just as common, and it gets confused with it because it also causes a lot of pain in your pelvic cavity because it's the endometrial-like tissue infiltrating your uterine wall. So in that case, if you just have adenomyosis, then taking out the uterus does help if that's all you're experiencing. But often people have endometriosis with that. So it's very, very complicated. But even up to, I want to say like 3 years ago, I mean, that's what I would hear. If there were women over the age of 40 who had been diagnosed with endometriosis, they had had a hysterectomy.
Wow. Because they knew, because the doctors had gone into their body to discover. Yeah, I don't know. I have terrible, painful periods. And now, so this will come up. And Lauren and I have been talking about this a lot, which is why I started taking the supplements. I'm in perimenopause. It's lovely. But we're calling it a glow up because, look, it's going to be great to not have them anymore. But my period of, sorry, you guys, this is like we'll give you a warning before you listen to this episode. But it's really good to know this about, half of the fucking population. But my experiences, my cramps and my pains and all of that are back to like they were when I was really young. When I first started 14, 15, 16, 17, which is when it was awful. My mom used to catch me like curled up in the fetal position on the ground. And my daughters have like a free pass. If they say my period cramps are killing me, I'm like, come on home from school. Like I'm not even messing because I know that it's awful. And we used to just be like, well, whatever, suck it up. You got to live with it. But I got pregnant very easily, which is why I think I probably don't have it. Or if I do, it's not severe because I could just think about getting pregnant. And then 9 months later, there was the baby. It was lovely.
Stay away from me.
I got very lucky. Okay, well.
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back.
Endometriosis, if somebody is diagnosed with that is not necessarily correlated with infertility. I think infertility happens, like for me, it's about 30% of people who have endometriosis. So it's not, I think a lot of people get really scared and think I'll never have a baby. It can be a lot harder to get pregnant, but my mom, who also had endo, got pregnant with twins very easily. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily, so that's not necessarily an indication you don't have endo. Okay. And I'm so sorry to hear about your period pain and your daughter's period pain. And honestly though, I think this is part of the reason that I love working on Semaine is because I want everybody to talk about periods. I want Alan to talk about periods. I want I think everybody should understand that they are here because of a period, or I should say a lack of a period. So I mean, we should all know there's this wonderful pop-up book for like 4 to 6 year olds that is a vulva pop-up book.
That's amazing.
And I think every little kid should see it because it's like we as women, but as men, as non-binary people, none of us get that education in health class that we really should. I think most people correlate, they say vagina and what they really mean is their vulva when they're talking about things. And the issue behind that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's an Arrested Development scene that does the vulva thing. So I always think about that.
You didn't make that joke up, Alan.
Me and Jason Bateman were two peas in a pod.
But honestly, I think it's great, and I think doing some of it with like a lot of humor is great too, because it is something that a lot of us feel sort of embarrassed about talking about, but we should understand, because whether you're in a partnership with somebody with a vulva, or you have people in your family who obviously have those parts, it's good to understand all the issues that can happen around that, and why somebody might be feeling pain, or why someone might be feeling a little more moody if they're going through perimenopause. And then more importantly, when you're talking to your doctor, it makes it a lot better if you can explain to them exactly what is not feeling good.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes my balls hurt.
Okay. That's not her specialty.
No, I was just trying to...
I mean, you can ask Matt, but I don't think...
And also, I think that's the thing. Doctors would take you a lot more seriously, Alan, talking about your balls hurting than they would if I was saying my vulva's not feeling great.
That's true. Okay, so thank you. I so appreciate that background and just sort of the destigmatizing. We're going to talk about it. It's going to happen. You guys listen anyway, share it anyway. We do use curse words, but share it with your young...
Your fucking children.
Folks in your life who have uteruses, right? Yeah, your children. Yeah. Because it's really important to take away that stigma. But so you get diagnosed, which was a chance. And like, okay, here's what we've got here. How do we go from that to thinking, I got to do something about this?
It was a long process, because after I got diagnosed and I was experiencing chronic pain, I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I didn't want to talk about my story. I didn't want to talk about endo. And I would have ignored the pain for as long as I could. I would just take the painkillers and get along with my day. And what happened was my body was like, oh no. So I was talking about my left ovary is a lot teeny tinier than the right ovary. And I had something called an endometrioma on it, which is basically like a benign tumor that's made up of these endometrial-like cells. Had no idea, but was an excruciating pain. That ruptured. So cysts and like benign tumors and fibroids, things like that. That is common experience for those of us with female anatomy. Yeah. So, and unlike a sort of functional cyst is what they would call, like a lot of the cysts people with PCOS have, polycystic ovary syndrome, or just a lot of women have, where your body can sort of reabsorb some of that. It can't with an endometrioma. So I ended up in the hospital for about 2 weeks. They had to do emergency surgery. My entire pelvic cavity was basically inflamed because of all this like fluid that had erupted with the endometrioma. And I'm giving you that background, all that fun anatomic detail, because it really is, it was super painful. It was a super traumatic time in my life. I've had multiple surgeries after that. That's very common for endo warriors. And at that point, I was like, I'm done. I just want to feel better and I don't want to talk about it anymore. But your body doesn't let you do that. I felt a lot better after surgery. So Heather, you were mentioning surgery is the only way to diagnose. It's also excision surgery specifically is sort of the gold standard for treating endometriosis, because there is no cure. You can think of it like cancer cells. You kind of want to cut out the cancer cells and some healthy cells, but there's still a high potential for regrowth and the endometrial tissue coming back. So even after my excision surgery, which is usually out of network, so most people can't get it. But that's another combo. Even after that, I went from like a 10 plus off the charts in pain to down to like a 2, which was amazing. But the pain started coming back when I was in my mid 30s. And at that point, I was just like, ugh, I'm done. Luckily, I'm married to this amazing guy who is also a scientist. He was with me on this fun endo journey, and he was like, no, we're going to make this better. We're going to make this better. I'm going to create these plant-based mixes of powders like curcumin and green tea and resveratrol, because I'm studying this stuff in my lab, and we're going to make you feel better. And I was like, okay, I love plant-based food, plant-based, all the things, but for my pain, I need drugs. But, if you want to, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. So Matt started mixing all these different powders into my morning smoothie. And on the first period that I had was completely pain-free, which has never happened in my life before. And I didn't think that was a thing. I also didn't realize some people don't have period pain. I mean, some people with female anatomy don't have period pain. And I was
so how do they get that superpower?
I know, right? They're God's chosen people, really. I mean, so 80 to 90% of us have painful periods at some point in our life. So they really are. They're special. They are special. But yeah, so I had this pain-free period and I was like, okay, maybe that was a fluke. Month over month, kept testing this fun mix in my smoothies and felt great. Sent it to my twin sister to try. She also has endometriosis. And when we both felt so much better, we were like, we have to make this a thing. So the three of us tested it on a group of beta trial testers. At that point, we encapsulated it. We were literally making the capsules in our kitchen and ran a trial and had great results from that, not just from people with endo, but just people with general period pain or the fatigue or even mood swings. And that is how Semaine was born. That was back in 2019, doing that first trial and realizing also that it was amazing to get to start to tell people we're working on the supplement for painful periods. And I thought most people, men and women included, would be like, oh, okay, great, good for you. But people wanted to talk about it. Even the men, they'd be like, oh yeah, my daughter has really painful periods or my wife has really painful periods. And there needs to be something for this. So it was a really exciting time, that sort of creation time and realizing you could turn your pain and your trauma and your experiences into something that could help so many people.
Yay, Matt. He wins.
Yeah, he does.
That's incredible.
How does one start a clinical trial?
Oh, that's a good question, Alan. So, and this was just sort of like a beta trial, like we were sending things out to people that were interested in trying it. We have run a clinical trial with a third-party lab. So once we launched as a company, we now work with another lab. So it's completely unbiased and they do all sort of the actual testing with the subjects. But one way you do it is you marry somebody who has a PhD in science who has run clinical trials.
All right,
and then he takes it on for
Check.
you. Yeah.
That's helpful. Is there an age limit? Can I give this to my teenagers or?
Oh, 100%. So yeah, I mean, supplements usually aren't, it's changing now, but supplements used to not be able to say this is also safe for teens because they don't do a lot of testing on teenagers. They don't do a lot of testing on pregnant women for good reason, but also that sort of needs to happen. But yes, it is efficacious and safe for, we even have girls as young as 8 and 9 taking it because they're starting their periods earlier.
Really?
And yeah.
I have two boys.
So,
one of them's 8.5. So this blows my mind.
Right? I mean, they're starting, periods are starting to happen younger. I think now the average age is 11, but it used to be 12. So things are pushing earlier and earlier. And definitely there's, that's so hard for moms watching their parents watching their 8 and 9-year-olds sort of go through that and have pain at the same time,
That's
Wow.
like second and third grade. That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this something that people need to take every day in order to not have pain when they're on their period, or do you only take it in and around your cycle?
You only take it in and around your cycle. So that's a great question because most of the period supplements out there, you take it every day because usually they're targeting sort of estrogen levels. We are specifically looking at inflammation. So it's an anti-inflammatory. It's basically a plant-based anti-inflammatory. Anybody can take it, no matter what their sexual orientation. Matt takes it after a hard workout because it's basically like a plant-based ibuprofen. And the reason why we focused on inflammation is because people with dysmenorrhea, which is the clinical term for painful periods, it's kind of just an umbrella term when doctors are just like, oh, you have period pain. If I call it dysmenorrhea, it sounds like a thing. Most people with dysmenorrhea have higher levels of inflammatory markers in their pelvic cavity. And so we were like, if we actually get to the root of that and helping to lower that inflammation level, that decreases the pain a lot. It also decreases some of the mood swings because mood swings are very closely tied to not just our hormones, but also to inflammation. The more inflamed you are, the more likely you're going to feel down or anxious.
So you get this diagnosis, you want to pretend it's not happening. Your body's like, no. And you're like, I'll take all the drugs. And your husband says, no, we're going to create all this stuff. And then you start, Semaine, what is it like to have to do all of this research? To be able to tell us everything that you just told us, you must have had to go through massive self-education.
Yeah, but oh my gosh, that's my favorite part. I mean, I think I was definitely one of those people that like hated talking about periods just because I hated periods. You know, when my sister and I, so we're twin sisters, but Kath got her period 6 months before me. Her first question to my mom was like, when am I going to hit menopause? Because she didn't want her period anymore. Like that was just like, we were like, that was what we were looking forward to. So we were, and I think part of it was because my mom had painful periods. So periods were always this thing that were miserable, right? It was a miserable thing. Our periods were miserable. So I always had this fight with my body, and, you know, tampon commercials showed me that you just like get on with it and you wear white pants and you go, you know, play out on the beach. And that's what you should be doing when you have your period. So it was something that like I just like hated thinking about. And then my body sort of forcing me into this position where it's like, okay, let's learn more. And to not just learn more about our bodies and how amazing they are and how crazy they are, but also the history of like gynecology and learning about this massive inequity in women's health. Really like we realized, I mean, it excited us to find out so that we could help other people feel empowered to understand, like, you know, for instance, the reason why, you know, women are always like, oh, I'm so hormonal and I feel like crazy and on different parts of my cycle, or while I'm going through perimenopause, this is such a pain in the ass. But our entire system based on a patriarchy is set up really for men to thrive. And I mean that on a biological level, like not as something where like I'm ranting about the patriarchy, but just factually, men and women both have a 24-hour hormonal cycle. You know, we wake up in the morning, there's cortisol involved. But for men, they basically just have that 24-hour cycle. So when you wake up in the morning, your testosterone peaks. And so you're getting out of bed, you're ready to go to work, you're going to tackle the day, your testosterone starts dropping by the end of the day. And that's sort of your cycle. You know, you're killing it at work, you're going out to the office during the day, and things sort of like slow down towards the end of the day when you're coming home. For women, we don't have that, obviously. It's on a 28-day cycle rather than a 24-hour cycle. And so we'll have days where we're killing it because maybe we're in our ovulatory phase. So that's right in the middle of your cycle. You feel more confident, things sort of flow easier. And then you sort of hit your luteal phase, which is 2 weeks heading into your period. You're going to feel a little like more tired, maybe a little more irritable. And so just our lives are really not set up for somebody with a 28 cycle. It's set up for somebody with a 24-hour hormonal cycle.
My mind is blown right now.
Yeah.
I knew none of this, except I do have a 24-hour luteal cycle.
Oh my God.
But other than that,
I don't know what that means, Alan. What does
he
that
just
mean?
made it up.
it means I poop once a day.
He just made it
My
up.
luteal cycle. No, my mind legitimately is blown. I had no idea that there was such a massive difference in men and women hormonally like that. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back. I just don't know where to go with this because there's so many things that sleep is tied to and the 24-hour cycle, and then but I'm trying to think of the evolutionary advantage aside from survival and, you know, the ongoing continuity of our species as to why women and men as a gender evolved so differently like that. It just, I'm going in so many different directions. I love this. Tell me more.
I know,
Please tell me more.
right? I know. It's so exciting. And obviously, I think, you know, a big reason is like people with female anatomy are the ones that can get pregnant, right? And so it's like your body has to do way more than the human beings who can't carry another human being in their body, right? To me, that just sort of makes sense. Like you're gonna have a lot of more hormones that need to be like switched on and doing things. And unfortunately, we don't have like a better understanding of all this. It's always so frustrating to me because I can't tell you the amount of times that doctors will say like, oh yeah, pesky hormones, women's hormones are so complex. And that's crazy to me because yes, I think they are more complex than male hormones generally, but we have mapped the human genome. We have sent people to the moon. We're sending things to Mars. Like how tricky can some hormones be to understand a little bit better? They don't want to. They don't want to. I mean, when I was in the hospital the first time, this was with a female doctor, she was like, we don't really know what's going on with you. And it'd be so much easier if you were a man because all of your bits are outside.
Yeah.
That's what a doctor said to me.
I will tell you, I meet more and more in the industry that I'm in coaching and holistic mental, emotional, physical health and wellness. I meet more and more women who are entrepreneurs building their schedule around their cycle. So when they are luteal, they don't take meetings. They're not going to be on stage. They're like, they plan things for when they're going to thrive. And I have one friend who literally takes the entire week, the 7 days of her actual period. She's off. She's like, I'm just going to take care of myself. And I think it's so cool and so fascinating that people are starting to work their lives around it. And also, your supplements maybe make that not so necessary if you don't feel awful. So it helps with being tired, not just pain, but gives you a little more energy, right? Like all of that stuff. So it sucks that we live in a society that wants us on a 24-hour cycle and we're not on one. That's not ever going to change, though. Even if they get to understand our hormones, that's not going to change.
No.
So something...
the system is still set up as a patriarchy, so that, that makes sense. And you're so right there. The idea of like syncing your life with your cycle and being very cognizant of it is something that is gaining a lot of traction, which is really cool. But I know a lot of people will be thinking like, I can't take 7 days off, or I have kids and there's no way that they're going to let me just lay in bed for even a day during my luteal phase because I want to kill everybody, you know? And I think that's what it is. It's like, how do we help people feel empowered within the system that they're in right now that is not set up to help them feel fulfilled,
How do you do that with the company and Semaine? Like, you're breaking taboos and you're having these conversations and normalizing it. So that sounds like something that you've actively been working on.
And I have to say, like, for the most part, I just work 24/7, so I'm not listening to any cycle of my body at any point.
Whatever, you're a generator. That's why.
I love it, Heather. No, but honestly, I do. If there is like a podcast or episode I'm recording, or if we're having to pitch to a retailer or fundraise or something, I will just be aware. I'm like, is this happening right before my period when I'm going to feel more sensitive and be a little bit more curt or short with somebody because I don't really feel like doing it. It's just at least having the awareness is super helpful, and knowing like, oh, I'm about to go into this Heather knows this big femtech summit that's happening at the beginning of June, and sort of seeing that it's not quite aligning when I'm going to feel like my sparkliest, and just knowing that really helps so you can be a little gentler on yourself.
I love
Well, that's cool. That was an answer to a separate question that I absolutely love about how you were interpreting it. But I mean, like, more around Semaine Health directly, like with the marketing behind the supplements, and when you are in these pitch meetings for Target and Walgreens and all these things, how are you working proactively to break the stigma? And like, we've been recording for, half an hour or more than a half an hour now, and like, in this 30 minutes, I've learned tons more than I have ever learned before. So when you're trying to sell the product, get it on shelves, probably a team of mostly male people making a decision about what products are hitting the shelves, how are you communicating all of this?
Oh, that's a good question, Alan. Okay, so it's interesting. For retail pitches, we are usually actually pitching to female buyers because they're the ones that are heading up femcare aisles. I think if we were pitching to supplement buyers, that would be a little more mixed. But even then, because they're they have their fingers on the pulse of what their customers want, and they know customers want, whether it's lubes or sex toys, because Target is leaning into that, or incontinence underwear and stuff. It's like there's a lot less taboo, I think, when you're meeting with people who realize that they need to sell these things to people. But it's a really good point. Definitely, when we were fundraising, there were lots of groups of people who were like, a fun story is we were pitching to a group of like an angel consortium of investors, and it was supposed to be at least one female was supposed to be there, but it ended up being 17 male identifying people. Oof. And nobody sort of cringed or looked weird when we were talking about periods. But after we pitched the PMS and period support idea and how it really helps women on their period, we did get one guy who was like, yeah, that's really cool. But like, have you guys thought about something for like when her partner's not feeling good because maybe she's on her period? I'm just spitballing, but like something for their partners when that's happening. Make him feel better because she's mean. I think when he started saying it, he realized, oh, no. But he just kept sort of like, like something for men. Have you thought about something for men? And that was tough because, I couldn't just be like, oh, just fuck off, It was somebody who was taking the time to listen to us pitch, and we knew we didn't want him to be giving us money, but still it was kind of like, we haven't really looked at that. There definitely is more medication and more focus on men's health. So we really want to focus on women's health because that has been, not really studied. So that does happen. On the flip side, we did end up fundraising with a private equity firm, and they are very male dominated. And our two partners there were incredibly knowledgeable when we came into our pitch session about women's health. So that was one reason why we went with them, because we were like, they had done their due diligence. They wanted to talk about everything openly, and that was very refreshing.
I think it's really important to talk about this. You have made such a conscientious effort to be a sustainable company. And when I first got the supplements, I'm like, these bottles are tin or aluminum. I don't know what they are, but they're not plastic. I would love to know, did you start out that way? What led you down that journey? And does it make it easier or complicated? And I don't know. Let's talk about it because I think it's so important.
Yeah. So I think starting the company, we always wanted to be a very conscious brand. So sustainability was really important. And we started with the PMS and period support came in a glass bottle. And we were like, this is beautiful. And it's glass and it's so pretty and it's better for the environment. The plastic lid is the only thing that's plastic. Everything's the box it ships in is cardboard and can be recycled, yada, yada. And we even got special labels that you could peel off really easily. So the glass was like completely, reusable or recyclable without having to worry about it just being shifted into the landfill. And then when we got into mass market retail, retailers were like, yeah, you can do glass, but it's going to get easily damaged. It costs more to ship. And we don't want a lot of broken glass like on our end. So we were like, okay, we'll switch to plastic temporarily, which is what we did. Weren't happy with that. So we were constantly looking for other things we could do. People in our subscriber list were like, can you do refillable packets? And I love that idea. And we started exploring compostable packets that could refill the glass jars. And we couldn't do that as a small business. We couldn't do that for subscribers and do something different on shelf. So just inventory wise, couldn't afford it, too hard to manage. And then we found out about, we were watching how a lot of soap companies like Method had an aluminum bottle for their soap. And we're like, what if we did that with our supplements? There's got to be a way. And we found this amazing company based out of New Jersey that was like, yeah, we're working on it. The tricky part was making sure the seal on the cap or on the bottle itself, the threads were tight enough to keep everything sort of preserved and safe within the bottle. Mm-hmm. And so that was the challenge. And we worked with them to do it, and we're able to get it. It's actually more resilient than having it in plastic. It lasts longer. And now they're 100% recyclable and recycled aluminum, because aluminum is much better than plastic, because plastic, if it is actually recycled and reused, can only be reused 2 to 3 times. And also something I didn't realize before starting down that plastic journey was that only about, I think, 5 to 10% of the plastic we recycle actually gets recycled, because we used to ship everything to China and they would recycle it. And now China's like, we don't want your plastic anymore. So essentially, all that plastic goes to our landfills.
Wow.
So even if something is technically recyclable and we put it in our recycling bin and we're being really responsible, most of it is not making it to the landfill. That is not to say feel discouraged and just chuck plastic away. Definitely still recycle it, but it made us aware that plastic is obviously very problematic in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'll do a little.
I love them. They're really light and I don't know,
yeah.
It feels kind of luxurious. That sounds crazy, but it feels like I'm doing something special when I take them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad, because that's exactly what we wanted. We still wanted the experience to feel like a pleasure, like something kind of more premium and not something you had to hide away in your cabinet, and be ashamed of, or like, this is really ugly, so let me just shove it in my medicine cabinet. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't look
cool.
like medication that you have to hide, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like people were kind of all in as soon as you put this out there on period pain management, right? We're here for that. We get it. It's a pain. Either it's a pain in our asses or, uteruses directly, or it's a pain in the ass to live with somebody who's going through all these things. We want to solve this problem. You also do perimenopause and menopausal stuff. And I'm curious what led you into that and how this treatment, or if it's in treatment, supplements are different than for the period stuff. And if you're seeing that same sort of passion and interest in supporting it.
Yes. Okay. So it is interesting. We launched with our PMS product. We also have a UTI product and we have a hormone balancing product. And we came out with those three first. And I think partly because of our age group, we're definitely like a solidly millennial brand. All the co-founders are geriatric millennials. So that is our audience range right now. And
late 30s, is that geriatric millennial?
I think it's everything from like 41, like 39 to 41. We're the geriatric millennials. Yes. We're, like, that is literally the term. We are the geriatric millennials. So,
I don't know what to think about
we were like slightly too old for like the Harry Potter stuff. So like all of the normal like millennial stuff, we're kind of aging out of it already.
Remember what the sound of a dial-up modem sounds like, and that's what's important.
Exactly. And I didn't grow up even with a computer in the house till I was 9. So yeah. We're also known as the bridge generation because we bridge people who, had to use encyclopedias before Wikipedia,
I remember that
So yeah, I
commercial.
think
The Encyclopedia Britannica with that like white dude who was, he's like, well, just get it. Everybody needs an encyclopedia. You remember that?
It was really cute because we have a younger person on our team and she was talking about, she's like, remember those Wikipedia books? And we were like, Wikipedia books.
Encyclopedia.
And realized she meant encyclopedia. Yeah. Wikipedia books. Makes sense.
All right, one more quick break. Hang on a second. All right, here's the rest of the episode.
But yeah, so we're like our target audience is 30s, 40s, and even 50s. And so when we came out with the PMS and period support, everyone's like, great, no more painful periods. But I'm about to stop having my period. What are you going to do about that? And so that was really what shifted it. I mean, I'm 39, and even with endometriosis, so people with endo tend to go into perimenopause, menopause earlier. I hadn't thought about perimenopause, or I didn't know what perimenopause was. I hadn't thought about menopause, just full stop. It just, wasn't on my radar, which I would say, for most people, it's not. They don't think about it until they start experiencing symptoms. And then there's very little there's no social support. There's very little medical support around it. So it's again, one of those things that we've now explored. And I'm like, oh, there's so much to learn and so much to dig into.
It's really cool. You taught me something that I didn't know. And I couldn't believe that I'd gotten to 40. This is how little anybody talks about menopause, is that menopause is just one day. It's just the day a year from your last period. Everything before is peri, everything after is post. I had no I thought you were like in menopause.
Right. And that's how we talk about it, that like, culturally, that's how we talk about it, that, oh, they're going through menopause. Really, most of the time it is they're experiencing perimenopause symptoms. And you can still experience the perimenopause symptoms in postmenopause. So that's also, you could no longer have your period for years and still have hot flashes or night sweats.
Fuck that.
I know,
your supplements
I know.
help with that? Is that what they do?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now, how is this different? How is what you give people to support perimenopause and beyond different than the PMS stuff?
So because the PMS is an anti-inflammatory, it would totally work for anybody going through perimenopause too, not just around their periods, but a lot of us start to feel more achy as we get older. And estrogen actually helps with a lot of joint pain and inflammation. So when you're going through perimenopause, you're not immediately dropping in estrogen. Your estrogen, progesterone are just sort of like going up and down like crazy. Kind of what happens when you're in puberty too. Like your hormones are just sort of like waving around like
that
crazy.
That is what it feels like.
It's not until your last 2 years before you're actually in menopause that your estrogen starts steeply declining. And so that's when you experience even more of the symptoms generally. So the menopause essential supplement that we have is really to help sort of with that estrogen drop off so you don't feel the severity of it. So we use red clover, which is a phytoestrogen, so like a plant-based estrogen, I guess you could say, that really helps sort of maintain that level of, I'm not going to say not that level of estrogen, but it helps you prevent some of those symptoms that happen because the estrogen's dropping off in your body so quickly. Also, while you're heading into perimenopause and menopause, postmenopause, your likelihood of heart disease increases. So making sure that you're taking something that helps with, I mean, apart from exercise, but also and eating well, but also taking something that could help with cardiovascular health, which the olive oil and the bergamot that we have in the menopause essentials also does that. So yeah, it's really trying to tackle the issue, which is estrogen decreasing as we age.
And so that is different than you take that all the time versus the
you
PMS
take that all
stuff
the time.
Is just when you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've been taking it, what, has it been like 2 weeks now? You would know because you sent it to me.
Yeah, about 2 weeks. And I think most people start feeling the biggest shift 2 to 3 months in. So some people feel it right away, but some of the shifts are things like their hair feels less brittle or it's falling out less because hair loss is a big thing that happens around perimenopause, menopause. And just not having the same night sweats or intensity of night sweats or hot flashes.
I will say 2 weeks in, and I told my partner this last night, I feel a little bit less chaotic. I feel a little bit more calm, and I've noticed a little bit more energy. Not that I don't get tired, but I don't seem to crash like I was crashing before. And I'm sleeping better. And I find this part fascinating. I'm waking up earlier. Like I'm just waking up. Like and I don't know, it could be anything, but it coincides directly with starting the Semaine supplements. And this is not a sales pitch, you guys. I just think it's so cool. And there's so much creative risk involved in creating a company like this. So those are the things that I've seen just in a couple of weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wait, how did you two get connected?
We're in they call it a guidance group, but I think it's like a mastermind group. We're in a mastermind group together.
Yeah.
What do you mastermind? Like, are you trying to take over the world?
Yeah.
How to take over the world.
Yeah, same thing we do every day, brain.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I want to know about what it's like, what kind of intentional risk you had to take, what you had to do to get, I mean, Target is a big fucking deal. Walgreens is a big deal. And you mentioned something, so I definitely want you to talk about it. Like we think like, oh, the Mecca, now I can rest. And that's not really it either. But how the hell does somebody who has a company like this get into these massive stores?
That it's tough, man. Retail is so tough. I think like, and it hasn't it's a risk. It definitely is a risk. Retail's a risk because it costs a lot of money to do. It's hard. We always say it's like easy to get on shelf. It's harder to stay on shelf, especially as a small brand, because people don't know you. So how are you driving people there and building trust when they can buy Midol, or they can, there's not really a lot for menopause, but when they can buy something else. So it is really, really hard. I think our biggest risk, though, was starting the company itself. Felt like the riskiest thing. Matt got out of academia to do it, which is, like
Wow.
that's all he had been in for years and years. He did his, master's in undergrad in 5 years, then did his PhD in 4 years, and then did 2 postdocs after that. And, the idea was that he would be a professor and a
Sounds
science
really lazy.
Researcher. I know, right?
Yeah.
It's totally lazy.
totally
Matt
lazy,
does
yeah.
nothing. I run the company, obviously. He just sort of sits around.
Obviously.
And I was a graphic designer and art director before this. And so I basically still get to do some of that with the company. So it was less of a shift for me, but still risk taking. We bootstrapped our first year, so poured all of our savings into it. And, mooch off of family a lot. Right now we're staying at Matt's parents' house in California. And it felt that felt like sort of the riskiest part. And also, I do want to say that I think going through the sort of medical trauma that happened, though, even though this feels like a big risk, and we are privileged to have the support of our family. So if everything fell apart tomorrow, we could still live in somebody's house. We wouldn't be out on the street. But after going through the medical trauma together, I think we kind of thought, we can handle this. We can do this thing. This is not big, scary end of life stuff. This is, we get to do something exciting together and create something exciting together. And when we first started Semaine, we were talking to a CEO in a big SaaS company that had just sold and exited with, like in the hundreds of millions. And we were asking his advice. He was a family friend, and he was like, this is going to be the hardest thing you ever do. So my advice would be turn around. You're at the foot of the mountain. You don't have to do it. Turn around. And Matt and I were both like, we've done harder. I think we've done harder. When I was in the hospital the first time we did, because of the ruptured endometrioma, I went into sort of septic shock, basically.
Yeah, that's harder.
And the doctors couldn't figure out what to do. So at one point we thought I could die. And so we were like, this is not that. This is not that. It is really hard and it is really risky and we are tired, but this is not that.
I fucking love that perspective so much. Like it just really simplifies things. Like,
And fuck whoever said turn around. That was kind of
we got that so much from everybody. I met up with another family friend who was an entrepreneur and had dabbled in lots of different things. And I was like, so what's your advice to starting a business? He was like, don't do it. Don't do it.
I mean, it's hard.
Was it Bonnie Tyler who was trying to? Were you raising from Bonnie Tyler?
Honey P. No.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. No, it's very hard. It's especially to have a product-based business. Right. And in this supplement, like there are certainly lots of obstacles, but that perspective of, yeah, it's going to be hard, but it's not going to kill me. Like, and I think for you, and I don't want to speak for you, but what I see is that there's so much passion behind why you're doing that. Because you could just take them at home by yourself. Your husband could put them in your smoothies and you'd be fine. But instead, you work nonstop to change the language around women's health issues and to help people everywhere. You have to love it to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's what you guys have been letting me spout on about. This whole episode is talking about women's health and feeling more empowered, because just understanding, the history of it's really important to understand, why do we feel shameful about our bodies? Why do we feel embarrassed about our periods? Why do we feel like we're over the hill when we're hitting menopause? Like all of those things, to understand that we're culturally sort of set up for that and that we don't have to buy into that, I think is so important, not just for our own sort of like, sense of self and acknowledging ourselves as equal human beings in this experience, but also just to get the proper care that we need to get, that you're pushing your doctor to understand, no, this is important and you can't just blow me off because I'm having hot flashes or because I have painful periods.
Yeah. Wow.
Those are arbitrary rules and teachings that come from the structurally solidified patriarchal society.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's what I mean, those were the jokes. I remember being a boy in middle school. That was the cool thing to do. Was like, oh man, she must be on her period. She's in a bad mood today.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's such bullshit.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's and it's from millennia, right? It's like, so the word womb comes from the Greek word for hysteria, because the idea was only women are hysterical. That's something that happens because they have this mysterious wandering womb that goes around their body. And this was what what doctors thought through the 19th century, that there was this sort of like the hysteria that women felt, the quote unquote hysteria, was because they had this damaged organ that caused all these crazy thoughts.
That's wild. And so that's why hysteria was a mental illness, and women were put into facilities.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But was it the cure for hysteria orgasms?
Yeah. I mean, that's like
I'm
from
being
that
serious.
one movie.
I have to.
No, there was that. I think there is historical fact around that. In Victorian times, everybody's repressed, right? Everybody's super repressed, and women, were more repressed than anybody else. Obviously, people of color, extremely more so. So yeah, you weren't allowed to express anything or feel any of your own pleasure. So of course, you're going to be incredibly mad and feel terrible. So
who was the first woman to start faking hysteria so that she could go in and just get orgasms all day?
Unfortunately, I feel like there was one doctor who did that. I don't think this was a holistically prescribed thing for women.
No, but I have heard multiple times from different sources that orgasms are supposed to alleviate period pain.
They can, yeah.
I've heard that too.
Because my partner loves that knowledge. She thinks that's so much fun. She's like, oh, you're in pain? Do you need an orgasm? I was like, do not fucking touch me.
I mean, I personally am like, I don't know exactly how that works. When I'm in excruciating pain, I'm like, no. But yes, if you do have mild to moderate period pain, orgasm, because basically it's a release, right? Your muscles and your pelvic floor are so tight if you're and you're tensing against the pain if you have a lot of pain. So it makes sense that an orgasm would help. And also, just on the topic of orgasms, one thing that I also learned through this is like, we always, at least growing up, like everyone thought the clitoris was this one little point in the body, right? We now know the clitoris is like, it has glands that goes all the way down. It's generally larger than most penises, and it is literally there just as an organ of pleasure. It doesn't have anything biological to do with being able to get pregnant, being able to carry a baby. It has nothing reproductive about it. And I think that is just amazing, right? It's like, so for women specifically, like orgasming is not a practical thing. It is literally just for pleasure.
Like a dolphin. Dolphins do that too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, dolphins have sex for pleasure. I think they're the only other mammals that do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go Dolphins.
Go Dolphins. And not even the sportsy ones.
I like
not even the
your supplement radio voice. If you do have mild to moderate, that was good. do your Let's talk about, I know that we've been doing this for a long time, but I think it's so fascinating to start that. It is difficult to start a supplement business and have it thrive the way that yours has. Like, how does marketing this work, and how does getting this in front of the right people, what kind of chance and risk do you have to embrace to do that?
I mean, it feels Sisyphean, like every day is trying to roll the boulder up the hill and it keeps rolling back down. Because I feel like especially last year was really tricky for anybody in the sort of CPG space, and using Mark Zuckerberg basically to have advertisement out there to people. That I know, unfortunately, that's like the game. There was a big update, an iOS update in Apple. So like it made it a lot harder to basically be creepy and market to everybody the way that all companies do. And so we were really like just throwing spaghetti at the wall for 12 months last year, trying to figure out how to do that, because there's a lot of different levers you can pull, but there's not a silver bullet that is going to be like the thing. I mean, I guess if we had Kim Kardashian talk about our supplements or something. That's kind of off brand. But, if we had like a celebrity talk about our supplements, maybe that's kind of a silver bullet, but really there's not. It's just working every day to try to get in front of people, because as a small brand, that's the biggest challenge, right? You have to build trust with people and get out there, and you're competing with a very, very noisy environment.
I get hit up with brand ambassador requests all the time for shit that makes no sense for me. Like fashion watches and other things. Like, brand ambassador, all you got to do, we'll give you 40% off. And then you just talk about your awesome watch. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think you should have, like, Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen would be good.
She would be good.
Yeah.
I talked to a company there, like a pajama company for little kids, and they had a shout out from Chrissy, and I was just like,
send her some of your product.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't sent it to her specifically, but we'll send things out to people. And it's just, we're a small team of 5 people now. We just added that 5th person, and it's like there's so much. You're like, we could do this and this and this and this, and it's like hard to fit everything in the day. And yeah, it is a challenge. Like that is the day-to-day challenge, Heather. It's definitely the marketing and trying to grow, because we're also a very fast-growing company. So the goal is to grow big and grow fast quickly. And we've now taken on private equity firms, so we have to do that and meet our investors where they're hoping we'll meet them. And so every day is like it feels a little bit like a race against time, i.e., money in the bank. And that can also like be super exciting because you always have that, but also super, super tiring.
That's why you got to work 24/7.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so how can people find you? How can they get their hands on these products? Which, to be clear, can you go through the products again? Just if you are one of those people with mild to moderate periods and you don't need the pain, like, is there something else that you can help people with? That's your announcer voice. Yeah, I know, I like it.
It's such a good voice.
Welcome
and also, just to be clear, for our supplements are also, like, anybody can take them. Maybe not the menopause essentials, but we do say we're a supplement company for women, just for clarity, because we used to say we're a supplement company for hormonal people because we were trying to be a lot more inclusive. It confused a lot of people. But saying that, I do think inclusive language.
That means crazy. That's what people hear. Hormonal people.
Exactly.
You're whacked.
And we were trying to lean into the fact that being hormonal is a great thing because you want your hormones. Estrogen is the reason we actually live on average 2 years longer than men. So even though it seems like a pain in the butt, it's the thing that keeps us living longer. Okay, so supplement company, it is, we specifically catered towards women, non-binary people, trans people, because that has been maligned in big medical and pharmaceuticals. So we do focus on women and women's pain with our PMS and period support product. And then we have a daily hormone balance, which I always talk about it like a superpowered multivitamin that also balances your hormones. It's different from the menopause essentials, which is specifically looking at estrogen decline. And it is for really helping your metabolic hormones. So it was interesting, Heather, because you were talking about like sort of cravings and sleep a little bit. Specifically, the daily is sort of built for that because most of us just think about our sex hormones when we're going through mood swings or not sleeping well or experiencing, irritability or something. And a lot of the time it has to do with our metabolic hormones as well. So things like insulin levels. So all of that is sort of tied into our sex hormones as well. So the daily hormone balance helps with metabolic hormone support. It also has a B complex in it and magnesium and zinc. And then we have our urinary tract cleanse and protect, which is for preventing recurrent UTIs. Because that is also an extremely common problem for women. And as we age and our estrogen declines, UTIs happen much more frequently. Actually, for men and women, the UTI just happen a lot more as we age.
Can I chime in really quick? I want you to finish, but can you clarify? I think a lot of people have a misconception that women only get UTIs after sex.
Yes, that is so fascinating because I think most people do think that like UTIs are kind of shameful because you're like a college girl in your 20s who's having too much sex and not peeing after sex or something like that. And that is not the case. I'm not sure how that came about. Actually, the demographic that gets the most UTIs are people 65 plus. So yes, probably more women, but men and women, because as we age, that just is more likely to happen because of our bodies basically aren't fighting off infection as well. If you're in the hospital at all, being catheterized sort of puts you at risk for a urinary tract infection. And also, I think most of us have heard, wiping front to back, like peeing after sex, peeing before sex or intercourse or any sort of intimate play is also a great idea. But really, it's the number one risk. If you go to the Mayo Clinic's website and look at the number one risk for UTIs, it's having female anatomy. So it's not anything you're doing wrong. Yeah. It's literally the way you're built. So that's why it shouldn't be shameful. And it should just be something like, okay, we know that now. So we have to be a little bit more careful. If you're, inserting things and they need to be cleaner, make sure that you're washing those, washing yourself, washing fingers, whatever, to make sure that you're working as hard as possible not to transfer bacteria around.
Is that also a daily supplement?
It is a daily supplement, especially if you experience recurrent UTIs. And usually if you get one UTI, you're more prone to get another UTI, unfortunately. And then there are some people that just are much more prone to get UTIs. So one pill every day. And then I would say do that for 3 or 4 months, go off of it, see if that's good. And maybe that helped your body sort of basically when you have a UTI, there's something called a biofilm in your bladder. It's the bad bacteria builds up this very I'd say sticky kind of, that's why it's so hard to get rid of a UTI because it's hard to get that bacteria out of your bladder. And that's where cranberry comes in. They still don't understand exactly how it works, but cranberry really helps cut down on that biofilm and flush it out of your bladder.
I passed a drug test once. I took a lot of cranberry supplements.
Did that work?
I passed the drug test.
And you should. You shouldn't have. Yeah. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I don't know how much weed had to be in my body to get flagged. I don't know. This is in college, so I do not condone faking drug tests.
Alan, did you drink cranberry juice?
No, I took cranberry supplements specifically for bladder stuff.
For cleansing your urine.
Yeah.
Your bladder.
That's really okay. Because sometimes we get people out who are like, don't worry, I drink cranberry juice, not for drug tests, but for UTIs.
That's what they tell you.
And and we just like to tell people the sugar in the cranberry juice because very rarely are you getting it feeds the bacteria. So don't drink the cranberry juice. You need the cranberry supplement. Alan, very smart. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got us sidetracked. So there's the PMS and period support, the daily hormone balance, the menopause essentials, the urinary support.
And then we just launched our pre and probiotic for women. So it's a prebiotic and a probiotic combined with ginger. So it's basically like your sort of ultimate gut health supplement.
They cancel each other out, the pre and the post. So it's just biotic. It's just a biotic.
They help each other.
Yes, I am ingesting biotics to help my uterus.
Now, do you just send people to go to your local Target, or do they go to your website? How do they get it?
You can go to our website, SemaineHealth.com, to buy it. And especially if you're interested in subscribing, that's the only place we have subscriptions. And we're on Amazon. We're on Target.com, not actually on shelf at the moment, working on it. We're at Walgreens nationwide with our PMS and period support and hoping to expand there. And then if you have any Texas listeners, we are at H-E-B, which is the most beloved grocery store in all of Texas. So we're there on shelf as well with all of our products.
H-E-B.
Oh, Thrive Market. If there's any Thrive Market fans, we have all of our products at Thrive Market as well.
Well, Amazon's cool because you can just get it. And
yeah, exactly. Shipping's faster. If you need it faster, Amazon's faster than we can ship it.
Yeah, which is kind of messed up in a good way.
I know.
Sometimes.
In a good way.
I don't know.
For people.
I don't know.
I love this.
Amazon, but whatever. Yeah, I just thank you so much. I want to hear what Alan thinks because this was so out of left field for you. This was so And I was texting him last night. I'm like, okay, so this is a departure from what we normally do, but I really think it's fascinating and it fits in with this whole concept of manifestation and creating your success. And now he's chewing, so swallow, and then yeah.
I thought this conversation was fascinating, and being a fellow small business entrepreneur, I think solving any solution, looking for an answer to something that, especially something that a large group of people don't want to talk about, I think is just phenomenal. It's amazing because the more people talk about this stuff, the more it's normalized, and the more we really can, just the fact that if there were employers that were just like, you know what, take a period day, like do what you need to do.
There are some countries that do. Is it Japan?
Spain.
Spain
does it.
Spain.
Spain started it. Yeah.
I think it's brilliant because
So
this
cool.
stuff like
so cool.
legitimately creating life out of nothing. And then like, you got little side effects and sometimes shit doesn't work like it should. But I just think it's brilliant. I think what you're doing is amazing and admirable. And not gonna lie, I'm glad I don't have to go through it, but I will support you however I can.
Well, thank y'all so much for letting me go on and on about all of this. I love it when it can be like the 8th grade health class you never got but should have.
Totally should
right?
have.
I feel like we all kind of need that. And also, I love how y'all support people who are in creative industries that become entrepreneurs, because I as a graphic designer, and before that I was a dancer, so I was on stage, ballet, not Broadway, but that was my love. That was my number one love, and still the thing that I wanted to do more than anything else. But then I became an entrepreneur. So I mean,
Yeah, it would be hard to dance with the kind of pain you were experiencing.
Yeah, and I would, just push through it because ballet is already pain, so just add some more pain on top of that. And
Lauren, you said something.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about one of the questions. Oh, and we didn't ask about failure, and I'm curious, but one of the questions we often ask is, what's the next chance or risk you think you're going to take? And I don't know if you know the answer to that, and I'll let you answer the question. But you were like, the health class you should have gotten. Yo, is that your next business? Are you going to go you should be teaching this to young people. Like, oh my God, that would be an incredible business for you.
Oh, that would be so cool. I would love that. And I would love to work with healthcare providers on that too, because it is crazy. I think doctors, when they're in med school, they get 1 day on menopause. They get maybe a half day on endometriosis. They get like 2 hours on polycystic ovary syndrome, things that affect so many of us. Obviously menopause, that affects everybody that they're going to be seeing as future doctors. Like that's insane. I would love to do something where we're in tandem also with healthcare practitioners and just going around to everybody else and explaining all this stuff. I think that would be a dream. I love that. Oh, the next big risk, the next big chance.
Yeah, if you know what it is.
Well, I think every day does feel like a chance and a risk with this. But we were just talking to one of our advisors yesterday who's like, listen, I want to push us to grow faster and bigger in the next 2 years. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. So that means like hiring a bigger team. That means maybe partnering with some other people and with expertise in the CPG space. And I think the biggest thing with taking those risks too is like being very flexible and willing to be flexible and resilient around our business, right? We're trying really hard not to build our egos into the business. Like we want this to succeed so that women plus have more options for their healthcare, and that it isn't about us as co-founders. Like if I need to step down from being CEO and help the business in another way, I will do that. So yeah, whatever it takes to grow this bigger so more people have access to it.
I love it.
This was amazing.
Really. It really was. Thank you so
Thank
much.
y'all. Oh, no. Thank y'all so much.
I love it. I love you. I love what you're doing. I just think it's really, really empowering. The idea that I could, well, we'll see if I can talk my teenagers into taking it. They have terrible, terrible period pain. The idea that I could give them a supplement that's not a high octane naproxen, which is what they take right now, like 800 milligrams of naproxen, and they would actually feel better is just amazing to me. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. No, actually, one of our biggest audiences for the PMS and period support is moms of teenage daughters. Because of that.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Oh, Heather, Alan, thank you all so much. This was so fun. And thank you for being so open to talking about this and going off piste from what y'all normally do, because it's so helpful to have a platform to talk about these things, and y'all are there providing it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I had so much fun watching you. I'm sorry that the audience members who are listening to this couldn't see your face. I had so much fun watching your face during that whole conversation because you were just mind blown and horrified the entire time.
Maybe not horrified. Mind blown, yes.
Not horrified about what we were talking about, but just that it's actually that bad for those of us with uteruses.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to even try to comment on that because I will never know. I will never understand.
I appreciate that you're not one of those guys that's like, well, don't you have any supplements for the men that have to deal with the women on their period? That was crazy.
That's called marijuana edibles.
It's also just called you fucking privileged prick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. You want to be with this person with a uterus? This is the stuff you have to deal with.
Absolutely. I think Lauren is just the bee's knees. I really love her. It's so gutsy to take your own physical health ailments and help an entire community of people feel good.
Yeah. Taking your own, like, just literally, husband quit his day job, dumped their life savings into this, now are working with these VC firms to generate a legitimate startup business. That's gutsy. I was going to say ballsy, but I mean, uterusy. It's
She's
gutsy.
got guts.
Gutsy.
They all do.
She got guts.
I mean, we just talked to Lauren, but her husband and her twin sister are co-founders with her. I'm digging the scientist husband who was like, I don't think you need to take all these pills. Let me just sort of play in the lab for a little bit. And I loved her face when she was like, and I didn't have pain. And as somebody who does have that kind of pain, I'm like, oh, that sounds so nice.
Yeah. Definitely want my wife. My wife goes, like, she has period pain. Who knows if she wants to be talking about
probably
this.
doesn't.
Oh, well. Probably doesn't.
Oh, Crystal.
Yeah, she has pain every now and then, but it's not consistently bad. And I don't know, and I don't think she's even researched enough to figure out like what makes it bad or what makes it worse. And I don't even know, like, is there anything that makes one period different from another?
Well, we should have asked Lauren that question. From my experience, it can, if your life choices, your activity and your food consumption choices are inflammatory, I think that can exacerbate it.
Interesting.
But I will say for me personally, when I was young, it was all awful. All of it. Just and not just when I was on my period, but also when I'm ovulating. So it's like a solid 3 out of 4 weeks is just fucking awful. Then it gets much better and you're having babies and you're doing all these things and your body regulates. And then as you tip into peri, your body reverts back to the way it was when you were a teenager. So we're back to awful, which is some shit, if I'm being honest.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's bad. Yeah, I don't know.
It's okay.
I don't have anything else to say that's not going to offend somebody, so I'm just going to shut up and say I don't understand.
It's good. I'm glad that we're having these conversations. I love that Lauren and people like her are out here doing this. I mean, it's so important. It makes such a difference. And talk about taking intentional risk and embracing opportunity. Like, we always talk about it in a way that is like this unsuspecting, wonderful, positive thing happens and then the lid blows off and everything's great. We don't often talk about this really awful thing happened and that led me to this thing that's great. I mean, every once in a while, but it's not that common. So I just love that we got to share the other side.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, it's a trauma to triumph sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of cliche, but I think it exists for a reason, that once you go through something hard and you're a genuinely good person, you want to do what you can to make sure A, it doesn't happen to you again, and B, others don't have to experience it either.
Well, that's really like the gift, because she could have just put that shit in her smoothies and gone on about her business.
True.
But she didn't. Well, folks, we hope that you enjoyed it. We were really into this episode, if you could not tell. Like, we talked for a long time. We probably could have kept talking if we didn't all have other things that we had to do at some point and didn't think you might want to listen to a 2-hour podcast episode. But we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can tell us what you think about it. How can folks find us, Alan?
On the Instagrams. Was it Chance? On the IG. Was it Chance Podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Shoot us your DMs. Shoot us your emails. Let us know what you're doing. How have you embraced opportunity? How are you manifesting your creative dreams and your creative life? If you've taken these supplements, let us know. Tell us about your periods. We want to hear about your periods.
Go into our DMs and tell us about your periods, and we're just going to basically send you a link to Semaine. That's what we're going to do. No, we really do want to hear what's showing up for you, what you like. Hit us up. We check our emails and our DMs. It's just us. I always sign everything. I'm the one that does it, let's be honest. But I always sign everything Heather and Alan, or Alan and Heather, and like stay mysterious so that you guys don't know. But it's really just me.
But sometimes it's me.
Every once in a while, it could happen. But we do. We read them. We will respond. We appreciate you so much. Also, what should they do if they like the show?
Share it with a friend. Give it a rating. Give it a review. You know them Apple Pods. Just scroll down in your player right now and be like, leave a rating, 5 stars, bitches.
We appreciate it. It really helps people find us. You've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I knew I could do it. I'm Heather Vickery.
No, I'm Heather Vickery.
You're not.
But you said it at the beginning.
That was a mistake too. I'm still tired.
And I'm still Alan Seals. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.